Back there.
Yeah. Okay, good morning. I'd like to welcome everybody to a special meeting of the Ulysses Town Board. This is our annual organization meeting. It is January 5th, 2022, and we are commencing at 8:20 p.m. or a.m. No, it is not 8:20 p.m. I apologize. I've not had enough, actually, I've had no caffeine, which is I'll have to rectify that rather shortly. We have a fairly simple agenda with lots of resolution. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda? Okay, I accept a motion to approve.
Move to approve the agenda as
Second.
presented.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Excellent. So moving on to the resolutions. We have,
Want to do a roll call?
oh yeah, let's do a roll call. Thank you. Will we do a roll call, please?
Yeah. Mr. Botts,
Present.
Ms. Bouchard. Present. Ms. Olson,
Present.
Ms. Weatherby.
Present.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Mr. Goldman.
Present.
Wonderful, thank you. Is there anybody in the public who wishes to address us? I don't see any members of the public. We don't have any in person. We do have a second privilege of the floor at the end of the business meeting. We do have some wonderful staff present. Our attorney Nate Van Wy is here, as well as Michelle Wright and Blixie. So thank you for being able to join us remotely. We hope those of you.
Scott, it's you.
And Scott is also here. Sorry, Scott, I can't see you. Our highway superintendent, but that is it for attendance. So let's move on to the actual resolutions. First up is I combined highway, so Scott could go off and do more interesting things than stay with us. The first resolution we're considering, number 2, is the highway shared services agreement. This allows for cooperative agreements for highway services and sharing of labor and supplies. The town board be authorizing the superintendent to take action that is consistent with town and state law as highway needs and availability, so he can go into agreements for shared services and equipment with other municipalities within existing budgetary constraints, provided there's sufficient liability coverage. So I'm going to propose that we bundle the highway resolutions. Did anybody have any questions or comments?
I
on that?
do have a question on the shared services.
Sure.
And I've always asked this question, I think, how do we know the kind of the balance of back and forth helping and working with other municipalities? If we're using our resources in a way that is a lot more than the resources of let's say the county. Do we have any way to manage that or understand that? You're muted.
Yeah, sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. We don't really do a lot of shared services anymore, but when we do, it's basically just a trade-off. Usually it's just basically trucks. If they need a truck, we'll send them a truck, and then if we need a truck, they'll send us a truck, that kind of thing. We haven't really got into a situation where we needed to borrow anything like a loader or something for a long period of time. But if we did have to do that, I'd have to just keep a log of how long we kept it and how much fuel we use, stuff like that. But we haven't really gotten into a situation like that yet.
Okay. But you're confident that it's not a one way or the other, it's not a big amount.
No, not at this point. No. If we get into a situation where I think it is, then I think I'll involve, Caitlin or the town board and try to figure out from there, if it becomes that much, an issue. But as of right now, we haven't really had any problems.
Great, thanks.
I can tell you that on a call with the highway superintendent for the county, he has indicated that the county is willing to share equipment with municipalities. He wasn't it wasn't a situation where he's saying that we might need to borrow equipment.
Right,
But so because, and there has been some talk at the town supervisor level of finding ways to be more cooperative on certain pieces of equipment because it's,
Right,
these
too
pieces are just
expensive, yeah,
ridiculously expensive to purchase.
okay, cool.
So, but
All right.
that's, I don't know if that's actually gonna come to fruition, certainly, and that's not necessarily in 2023, but at least it's up for debate. Any other questions on this resolution? Okay,
Are you gonna need to sign this today?
uh-huh,
Okay.
Yep. Yep, that's coming up on the next resolution.
Okay,
Oh, it's not part of the bundle.
I know it'll be, well, it's the next resolution we're covering. If you want to separate them out and do them independently, that's
No, no,
fine.
no. Bundle,
Okay.
bundle.
Okay, the next one is the approval expenditures, for highway maintenance. And so that is the, agreement that was provided separately. It's probably in the back of your packet.
There
There you go. Yes, I just want to make sure before we start signing it, that if anybody has any questions for Scott, this is the, section, this is the 284 agreement, which shows what he's planning to invest in for our budgetary allotments. And so, does anybody have any questions for Scott?
Just a curiosity, what percentage of our roads is that? If you happen to know, you have like 1 point.
Yeah, it's probably pretty low, I would imagine. We have 37 miles of road. And I'm not sure if I included the mileage in there on that 284 agreement. I don't have it in front of me. But I do have to stress that it's probably going to change, this 284 agreement. We'll have to go over it again in the spring. We're probably going to get more money from CHIPS, which we'll have to, put that into the 284. We'll have to see how the winter goes as far as how the weather is going to impact the roads, because I may have to change, what roads we're going to do. So this is very tentative agreement.
We did a modified agreement last year.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious if that is enough, 1.37 miles. If you say we have 37 miles, that
Yeah, it's going to change. I'm sure I'm going to be doing more.
that's like a
It's-
20-year rotation on roads is kind of what I was looking at.
Yeah, well, Michelle and I did have we worked on something where it's all data driven. As far as how we're keeping track of all this stuff in a capital plan. So we are working on that. But like I said, I'm sure it's going to change, and I'm sure that it'll be more roads.
Hopefully we get more money from CHIPS, maybe this.
Yes. Yeah.
That was nice. Okay, thank you, Scott. Any other questions for Scott on that? The next resolution on the next page is Town Highway Department hours of operation. This is a repeat of last year's hours of operation.
Yes, that's correct.
Anybody have any questions on that? They do. I can tell you, Scott, if you compare the expenditures from Scott and his predecessors, he has kept his flexible scheduling has allowed a lot of overtime to not exist to the benefit of the town budget. Any questions or no questions on that? And then this is resolution number 5, the vehicle benefit. This is also a repeat from last year. The town board is authorizing the use of a town vehicle for travel to and from work because Scott is on call 24 hours a day. But it's not provided for more than incidental personal use. Mileage should be recorded and submitted to the town clerk annually by January 15th for the preceding year. Any questions on that? Okay, then I would move that we adopt resolutions 2, 3, 4, and 5 at the bundle. Second. Excellent. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
all right.
Aye. Thank you. Scott, have a wonderful day. You're welcome to hang out with us, but you're also welcome to not.
All right, thank you.
Okay, resolutions 6 and 7, again, repeats of last year. So this establishes, number 6 establishes our meeting dates as the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays of each month at 7 p.m. And the second resolution, or it's the seventh resolution, designates our local media, that designates, that we will be, posting, under open meetings law, the clerk's bulletin on the town website when we have to do meetings, and also that the Ithaca Journal is our newspaper of record. So that's where the official public hearing and different notices that we have to post go to. Any questions about either of those? Move that we adopt resolution 6 and 7. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Number 8 is the related to meetings and minutes and other meeting records. Draft minutes will be produced by the clerk within 14 days of the meeting and sent to the town board. And then within these draft minutes will be available to the public, but they're going to be marked as draft. And that we are moving to, Chris, so this isn't change, right? If I remember correctly.
This is a change.
Yeah,
That
move,
the digital versions will be designated as the official minutes, rather than the paper minutes books, which I still intend to keep anyway.
and further resolved that the video recordings of meetings will be posted online in an effort to expand access to meetings and otherwise in accordance with open meetings law. We've actually seen an uptick in local interest in what we do, which is nice, that people will be able to watch meetings after the fact if they want. Any questions about number 8? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I moved that. Actually, we didn't second that. I'm sorry. I move it. Is there a second?
Second.
And all those in favor? Aye. I got it. See, This is why it's dangerous to have me without caffeine. I'm gonna
We'll
go grab some in just a sec, but we're just chucking along. When we run into a roadblock that needs conversation, I'm gonna duck out for a brief minute. Number 9 is the one that we had to wait on the longest. They finally posted it like 4 days ago. The mileage rate from the IRS is 0.655 cents. Or 6, no, it's
65.5.
60, yes, 65.5 cents. Thank you. Per mile. And that's just the standard we use.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Resolution number 10, petty cash, same as last year. Petty cash amounts of $300 for the town clerk and tax collector, and the court clerk is $150.
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Crime coverage, also a repeat of last year. These are, Michelle, we need to insert the insurance carrier. This was crime coverage was under.
Houston Casual,
I'm sorry?
the Houston Casual or general liability.
So this is Houston Cash.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so the financial reporting is a repeat again of last year. And this refers to the completion of our annual update document, the AUD. And we have to file within 60 days of close of the fiscal year. And that this grants us that if the state comptroller approves a 60-day extension of the AED, the supervisor has the additional time and the town clerk to submit.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Rich, I'm really liking this back and forth.
We don't.
Wait, was that 11, 12, and 13?
No.
That was
No,
still
11.
11.
Oh, okay.
No, we have not gotten to 12. Sorry, we were gonna bundle those originally, but I think we're just gonna keep going. So this is to change the financial, or I'm sorry, this last year was the first year we had to do an outside audit last year because of the amount of money we received from the federal government triggered the necessity of an audit. The town board has made the decision to budget for moving to having an outside audit performed every year. I have been very much in favor of that. So this is they're coming up, we're gonna be talking about financial audits, but in this resolution. In the resolutions that are coming up, we're gonna talk, and this one, we have the auditor, and Sarah is the company that we use.
So moved.
So, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
And then, so that was number 12. Number 13 is that we're redesignating Tompkins Trust as our financial institution.
That's changed.
No,
No.
we're
Okay.
that's just a-
Redesignated.
yeah.
12 is, that looks like the resolution is that the supervisor
Reviews
review
the
the town clerk
reconciliation.
statements and the town clerk review the
Supervisor's bank statements.
Yeah,
Yep,
it isn't that we're gonna have an audit.
the audit's coming next, the
Oh,
financial,
okay.
audit, but I just wanted to point out who the auditor was, Sarah. That was the
Okay.
reason I was introducing in Sarah to the conversation. You're absolutely right, though, Mary. Yep, no, we check each other's work between the two offices. And then 13 is designated Tompkins Trust. Is there a motion on that?
So moved.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Now we're going on to the financial audit. So, last year, we were not able to get, because we have not hit the 5,000 person threshold in Ulysses. We have to get, we're required by law to do an audit within the first 60 days. Or start an audit, I should say. We don't have to complete the audit. We have to start the audit within the first 60 days. In many years, probably most years, the town board has undertaken responsibility for that audit. And then last year, we had then additionally in March, I believe, brought in Sarah in for an audit because of their timing, they couldn't do it in February. This year, they're actually able to commence it within that 60-day window. So in this, I proposed that the town board designates in Sarah to actually do the audit that we officially have to do. But we still have to do a court audit. Insero does not do a court audit. If the town board wants, we could also schedule internal audits if the town board wants to audit the clerk's office. If as you guys did, Mary and Rich did, the supervisor's office last year, we can do that extra internal audit as well as we want. This is what we have to do, but if you would like to do those also.
So what you're saying then is that if we have an outside audit, we don't have to do an internal
Right.
review of the bank statements, right?
Right.
So the internal review might be helpful for Elizabeth to kind of see what goes on.
What I was thinking is I personally, like, when we were going through, Michael and I, you and I did the clerk's audit last year. And like the paperwork itself, I didn't find particularly useful. I think education and having a conversation is a lot more.
Right.
But like, that's what ended up happening, I
Yeah.
think, than going through. But I would definitely was hoping Liz you would be willing to do the court audit. I learned a lot from that process.
Yeah, I find it very helpful.
And I think having a meeting with Blixie on the supervisor's audit, or supervisor's finances, and a meeting with Carissa on the clerks would probably be, I think honestly, more, I think 30 minutes, them talking through the process and learning about how it works would be more substantive than what I think is antiquated paperwork that provided by the comptroller. But that's my personal thought. If the town board would like to officially schedule additional internal audits, that's perfectly fine too. It's up to
We've
you.
never not done that.
Nope, you haven't. But we've also never had an external audit done in the first 60 days. So it's your choice.
But how much extra is that gonna cost us by having Sarah do it manually?
We're doing it on an annual basis. So this is
Said
our,
the internal audit that we've done, if we have Sarah do that, which you're suggesting.
we already budgeted for it.
Okay.
This is the audit, because we've now gotten
It's
to,
included in the audit.
yeah, this is just the one audit. We were just able to this year get it scheduled within that 60 days. So it
Okay, right.
fulfilled our legal responsibilities.
So
But-
I have no need to.
You have no need to. Okay, I feel like you hang out with Blixie a lot. So if you have questions, then.
I like Blixie.
Okay, so we do need to schedule a court audit, and I'll need 2 board members who are willing to do that. So I'm hoping, Liz, that you could find time to do that. And that has some flexibility. We really just need to get it done in the first quarter. I was hoping to get it done sooner rather than later, if that's possible. But is there someone else willing to join in the court audit?
Finance committee is probably already busy with
Yeah.
their items. Sure.
Okay. So we'll just find a date.
So we should, if possible, finding a date now would be great. And I'm gonna dash, you guys pick a date while I grab that coffee.
We have to also make sure it works for Angie, so.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I gave it Tuesday morning. I already talked with her. Tuesday mornings would be good if possible,
But not.
and but not.
Okay.
I think grab Mr. Bowman.
Okay, yeah. Everyone's there. Mornings are usually pretty open for me. Or more flexible, I should say.
That'll be, what they say, February? Is that what you were
She
thinking?
said
First order, she.
First, yeah, sooner than later too.
Sooner than later.
Anytime.
Was that the left half or the right half?
It's always the right half of my meeting.
Nice.
Okay. This will help. I haven't had breakfast or.
Oh, man.
Or caffeine. It was a chaotic morning at my house. Okay. Did you guys find a date?
Not, yeah,
Not yet. Okay.
and then Carissa, we can just schedule some time
Yeah,
to walk through things with you,
yeah,
and I'll do the same with Lexi.
some also a morning.
Okay.
You see Rawdon's taking on the chairmanship of the
I saw.
consortium,
I did see that.
Of the what?
the health consortium.
Yeah.
He's vice chair, but he's taking on being chair.
I saw that
The
in
Tompkins, the
signature.
Greater Tompkins County.
Yeah, the
Consortium?
one we're part of,
Oh.
the one that I'm hoping you'll be the liaison.
No.
Oh, I'm
Nice way you said that.
I
Pretty good, huh?
said Mary into that slot.
Right,
If
but
you-
she
yeah.
gave it back to me.
Oh, she did.
Not, this time?
Are you going through the committee assignment?
Not yet, but it was split
I
in there.
have a bone to pick about those, but
Oh.
They're just proposed.
So I don't know what your schedule looks like.
What,
You want this sooner than later?
it probably doesn't matter.
If you could get it done, that's great.
Okay.
But
And this for me, February is preferable.
Okay. Oh, yeah, no. Would you like February 2nd?
well,
Just
you
to-
can do what, you can just range with anything. This is the one,
Okay.
the clerk one, the court.
That's the one we
is
need to get on the
You
calendar.
actually have to do for this
Yeah,
resolution.
just most any morning should be fine.
Okay.
I have team zooms, but they kind of move around, so it's hard to schedule them.
Do you want us to schedule something in the next 2 weeks
If you guys have time, that's great. I'm not gonna,
or out? Can do early next week and then the following week, late next week, I might be traveling.
10, 11, something like that.
10 works.
the January 10th, at what time?
That's the Tuesday. So she said any day but Tuesday morning.
Oh, that is Tuesday, edge against the 10th, yeah. That's the
Shoot,
one.
they're both in there today. Are they prepping for court today or anything? So. Does that give her enough time to get ready?
She's ready to go. She has to fill out one form.
Oh, okay,
I already talked to her, yeah.
okay.
And she's very much on top of her office, so.
Okay.
Ooh, headline.
Do you want to do the 11th?
That works. And what time?
I can do anytime. 10 a.m.
Okay,
Sold.
All right.
So is there a motion to approve? Resolution 14 with the annual audit of the court occurring on January 11th at 10 a.m.
so moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Collection of building fees.
Like, oh,
This came on, I
Signed.
believe.
Oh,
Did you pass?
No,
Yes,
I've got
over
the signed ones right here.
oh. What about that one?
We only need one
did you
side.
sign that one?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay.
the only person who needs to sign is me,
okay.
so, and Scott.
Right.
Collection of building fees, we moved to this process, a couple years ago now. That, payments for building and zoning fees, cannot be collected. They can, the zoning and building code officer cannot collect cash fees, when outside of the office. All the cash fees need to be reported, need to be paid directly to the town clerk for deposit. That was new about 2 years ago, I think. That makes it much easier for tracking cash. Any questions on that? Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 15.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. This is a repeat of last year, although Rich is my deputy. For professional reasons, he is not allowed to sign for our accounts. So this appoints Carissa as clerk, myself as supervisor, and Mary as a second town board member to be able to sign checks. When we have checks in the amount of $5,000 or more, we have to have them count, and we have to have at least 2 signatures. So having 3 people on enables us to always be able to.
In case somebody's on vacation.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
Any questions about that?
So moved.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
I made that second, Chris, that one goes there, sorry. Okay. These are, resolution 17 is the establishment of the pay periods and salaries. And these are setting the pay rates for 2023. This is all reflected of what was adopted in the town budget. So this is not an alteration.
17 and 18 together.
We do 17, yep. And 18, absolutely.
Okay, so moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Time records, this is again, a repeat, like, see, there were no changes to this one, right, Michelle? I don't think this has changed at all. The time records, was a repeat of last year. And then these are,
I do have one comment
yes,
about that. We haven't gotten to the personnel policy changes yet,
yep,
but elected officials, if this is approved, full-time elected officials, even those participating in health insurance, wouldn't have to do a regular time sheet. It would be the record of attendance required. And unless something changes, that would be it. I'm not sure if that's reflected in this resolution, but you haven't actually approved those other changes yet, so it's kind of. Do you
So
follow
this
what I'm saying?
this
Mary,
specifies
You've been a part of the conversation.
hourly employees. So, we could include a further resolved, that. Or we could strike the elected officials from this list would be probably the way to do it.
Yeah, because I mean, the resolution is fine, except for that one piece, because it would apply to everyone else.
Does that make sense to the board? Do you want me to explain it a second time?
And how big's the sick bank? Person's sick bank become, how many hours can they accrue?
Max out is what, 940 hours? sick bank?
960 for a sick bank for a full-time employee. That, of course, does not apply to elected officials at all. Leave time does not apply.
Wasn't that paying some,
We would have that issue.
That was a
but I think it's,
mistake.
but it's still going.
That it's being changed effectively in the personnel policy today.
She was.
That's,
referring to
yeah,
this
when we
further
get
down
to,
the-
yeah, so actually, if you wanna look at the personnel policy, I pulled out. It's in your second packet, it looks like this. This is the segment from the personnel policy, and this is what the finance committee worked on. And when we get to the personnel policy and adoption, there were many minor changes made throughout the document of errors, of typos and inconsistencies. But the substantive changes related to the personnel policy relate to the section 800. And it's to clarify, the intention is to clarify what elected officials are and are not entitled to. Elected officials are not entitled to vacation time. They're not entitled to sick time. They're not entitled to accrued time for working more than their set hours. We
Like
run
comp time.
their comp, thank you, I was forgetting the word, honestly, Mary, thank you.
Right.
And in previous instances, we've had issues of, not with anybody currently in the town, but we have had instances of elected officials using those times in ways that aren't consistent with elected official law. And so this clears it up that you don't have to keep a time card, because by state law, those elected official positions are getting paid regardless. Excuse me, unless they're removed from office. But you're also not accruing time. You're not accruing vacation, you're not accruing any of those additional times that are affected if you are a regular employee. So, am I missing anything, Blixie, on that?
No, I mean, so the only, if you read, when we get to that personnel policy, if you read through that, it's basically saying that elected officials who are full-time, there's just a couple of things they have access to, since they in many ways are like a full-time employee in terms of this is their livelihood, right? So health and access to health insurance is one. And access to long-term disability, if they choose, is another. And we can get into more of that. But short-term disability, paid family leave, accrued time off, all of those things that are accessible to full-time employees would not be applicable to elected officials due to the nature of their work and their office. So that's just a very quick and synopsis of that. And so the personnel policy basically says, these are the things that apply to elected officials, and all the language referring to them throughout the policy is kind of pulled, and it's all in one section. So it's clear, this is what applies. So if that makes sense.
So for this particular resolution, the proposal would be then to strike the supervisor, the highway superintendent, and the town clerk. from the
Right,
list.
because they don't have to do timesheets biweekly if they're not accruing any leave and they're not, there's no reason for them to be tracking their hours like that. There is a requirement for the state retirement system that usually at the beginning of an elected term, you would do a record of attendance so that there is documentation of what we're reporting for your days worked for the retirement system. But other than that, and then we would rely on that in terms of how many hours someone is working. But that's the only place that's reported.
Any questions or concerns about striking those three positions from this list? Okay, then I would move resolution 19 with the elimination of, in the chart, the town supervisor, the highway superintendent, and the town clerk from the list. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So this resolution 23 establishes our insurance choices for the year. And there are two on the next page that are not have not been finalized. And we have a cyber insurance under new business. We have a discussion on cyber insurance. That we can talk about that. And the accident insurance, we do have a quote on that. Michelle, can you remind me of the quote? I didn't print it out.
You want the totals
Yes,
for each?
yes, please.
Sure, hang on one second. So for cyber, the quote is 4,325, and for the accident insurance, it's 2,880 for the annual premium.
And can you remind, and the accident insurance, who is it under this year?
That is for it's with Philadelphia insurance companies.
And the cyber was, that's not Houston, who is it?
Cyber is through. Let me look this up really quick. 1 second.
It was like pulling teeth to get insurance quotes this year. I mean, they were just not providing them quickly. It was, we submitted all of our materials well in advance, and I was having to twist arms to try and get quotes.
It's called Hiscox Cyber Clear. HISCOX.
So I would suggest that because cyber is under a specific new business item, we could hold on doing that one. I would like to get accident insurance taken care of today, if you wouldn't, or right now, if you feel comfortable doing that.
What is accident insurance? That's if somebody falls here or something, that kind of makes it.
No, this accident insurance is related to vehicles, right, Michelle?
No, so this is coverage that we've not had before. It's related to the participants of the REC program.
Oh, thank you, Michelle. Yeah, we were gonna talk about that at the town board meeting. That's why I didn't
Correct.
have these.
Yep.
So that one's, so we don't have to act on either of these right now. I wanted to thank you for clarifying that. This is additional coverage that we can discuss providing, but we don't have to act on it today. And I'd like to not do the cyber right now, but have that for the conversation in new business, if that's okay with everybody.
Sure. With
Without-
those two.
Well, there's
they're not in it.
nothing in there.
There's nothing in here. I'm just giving you the information right now.
Okay.
Okay, so it would be the resolution as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I moved that one. Okay. So, the cell phone, reimbursement, resolution number 21 is, also, a replay of last year. Building code and zoning enforcement officer, and the highway superintendent and water district operator, are frequently out of their offices, and away from their stationary phones. And what has been discussed many times is whether or not we should move to having just the town owns phones, that those employees carry. But that's not what employees don't actually want to carry two phones. And so, so the cost we reimburse, up to, $40, we reimburse $40 a month. To put towards their cell phone plans to cover those costs. If we ever opted mid-year to go to a town-owned cell phone, they would not be eligible for that $40. We have not found it to be worth our time at this point to proceed with that. So that's what this resolution basically pays them for the use of their cell phones.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
We have
Aye.
a discussion.
Oh, you want discussion on it? Sure.
So, or be reimbursed for part of the cost of their cell phone at the rate of 40 a month.
Yes.
What would, is that 40 a month what we would pay if we own the cell phones?
So when Nancy went through a cost calculation, And it was coming out, if I recall correctly, and Michelle, maybe you were a part of this, it was before I was supervisor. But it was looking like between purchasing the phones and having the plans, it was gonna be about comparable. It was like $35, $30. It wasn't a significant monthly difference. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I think Blixie might be able to explain this a little bit more eloquently because there are tax implications that go along with owning cell phones that we lend out to staff or vice versa. I can't remember exactly what the,
It's actually the other way around.
okay.
On the phone, there, it's clear that it's ours and there's no tax implication.
Oh, right.
It's the other way around. If you're paying for more than what the business use is, then theoretically there's tax implications for that employee. But these amounts are so minor. I haven't felt that it was a big issue here, but it can be depending on how much you're paying people. And that's like if you pay people mileage or per diem over an IRS rate, the amount over that rate is taxable, in their W-2s, that kind of thing. So, but owning the cell phone, there's a lot more administrative work in that because that some organizations do that. They own the phone and they just give it to that person to use while they're working. But it is more complicated for the individual because they have to manage multiple devices. And you own the phone and you have to administer it and you have to pay the bills and you have to renew the contracts or whatever it is that you're doing. So the cost may be comparable, but not having to deal with the admin of it is probably, a benefit. So.
That's where we landed when we investigated this last year. We decided that the cost to the town to acquire these assets and manage them over time, we'd have to replace them. And we decided that it really was just the simpler way to do it with the reimbursement due to the administrative load that it would take to be maintaining these assets.
My only issue is, so normally, let's say the $40 a line, let's say, is what Verizon or whoever, who's our carrier?
Probably Verizon.
We don't have a cell phone carrier.
I don't,
Well, because we don't provide cell phones
right,
ourselves.
let's say it's Verizon. So the $40 would cover the employee's total kind of cell phone bill for that line, but he's only using part of it for town work. So it seems like we're reimbursing the employee more than what they're using the cell phone for.
You're not just reimbursing though on the cell phone plan, on the cell phone itself. So you have to consider that you're paying for the you're contributing towards the equipment also, not just the actual wireless plan. So.
True.
So when we looked at this last year, it did seem like it was going to be between administrative time and all the rest, acquiring the equipment and all the rest, it would be more expensive for the town to provide cell phones to these staff.
All right,
And it's only really 2 staff.
three, isn't it three?
Well, we don't have a water
right.
operator right
It's
now,
Scott.
an independent one.
This Scott,
Yeah.
right. Okay,
Right now, I believe we only have 2 individuals who are tapping this, right? Let's see, is that
That
correct?
is correct.
who are the two? Scott,
Code and.
And Mark.
okay,
And I can attest that both of them are using their phones in the fields. I've been with them when they have. Okay, so we had a move in a second. So any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so this is where this was just a draft. So if you do not like your committee assignment, please speak now or forever hold your peace until the end of this calendar year, unless you can twist arms. So get someone else to do it for you. Mary, I know you have some concerns. What
Well,
would you like to-
I made a list of all the committees that I am on
Right.
and ignoring alternates because
right,
You don't really get called.
not really. So personnel, finance, CSAC, village board, ag, cyber, tree, habitat, rec partnership, and the bee committee.
There's no more personnel. It's been absorbed in
Oh,
finance. You
Okay.
can, you can cross that one off.
So, and then it looks like I was also put as the main person for the health consortium.
I thought that's what you guys were doing. I'm sorry if that's not in fact the case.
Well, I've been doing it for 9 years. So I thought it'd be a good idea to shift the, but the way it's structured now, the executive committee of the health consortium really manages everything.
Right,
If you're not on the executive committee, it's like twice a year going to meetings.
So what you're saying is Rich would love to swap places with Mary.
and be the main person
All right,
instead of
I'll do
the
that.
alternate.
You got it.
Unless Liz would like to learn more about the health consortium. But Liz, you've got a lot of,
She's getting slammed. Yeah, she got,
All right, I'll do it.
you're a wonderful man, Rich. Thank you.
Thank you. And somewhere here, like, so I was never on the tree advisory committee.
You weren't? I didn't realize that. Well, actually, this is from last year. You actually were, according to last year's list.
Really? I mean,
Trees and
we've
bees, they go
not
together.
had a meeting then, or I've
Maybe you didn't
not
have
been
a meeting.
aware of them.
Maybe you didn't have a meeting.
And I believe that the Habitat. I think Carissa is the chair of that.
I think,
No?
you know what this is we just need to change this to the B committee. Just change the title to the B
Okay.
committee, and that solves that problem.
So R will be.
B committee.
B committee.
Is that what your official name is? I'm sorry. Did we
Well, it's
officially-
Be Friendly Community.
Friendly,
But B committee works.
Okay,
People know what it is.
So are we getting rid of pre-committee from R?
we are not, but this is only the section where we're appointing town board members. And we don't have a town board member on the tree committee.
Yeah, I thought that there wasn't one.
I don't think there's one. But we'll get to, yeah, we, in later in the section, we reestablish, we include who the members are of that. There's no town board member on that committee. So,
Okay, so I'm good with everything else.
okay, how does everybody else feel about?
I would like to not be the harassment and discrimination person.
Okay. A town board member can't be. Lexi, you're already on the list. We
Sorry,
need
I was
a-
gonna offer, but I'm already.
You can put me on there.
Okay,
good.
I'm gonna put you, if everybody, okay.
I would also ask that there's a letter missing in my name there, just
I'm
FYI.
sorry, Lexi, I will fix that. You're right.
Where does
I know it's not easy.
qualification? Let's see, where does the S go in your name?
ZSC?
SCH,
Okay.
sorry,
Guessed right.
How do you pronounce that, Lexi?
Take.
H. It's very easy to say,
More challenging to spell.
exactly.
I apologize, that was my fault, Lexi.
It's okay, really.
Okay.
Is everybody okay with other assignments? Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful, then accept a motion with those alterations to the chart. I'll make a motion to approve resolution 22.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, so appointments of non-town board members. These are chairmanships and liaison type positions, so we're gonna get into the actual substance of the committees later, of the board, of the configurations of the committees. You'll notice that the clerk for the Board of Zoning Appeals and clerk for the planning board are TBD, because that's gonna be filled by the project assistant.
Do you have
Position.
a private position?
We're doing final interviews next Tuesday and Wednesday. We have 3 candidates that we're going down to the final round with. So, yeah, we had good turnout, and I think we have 3 very viable candidates, which is delightful. We don't I reached out. And Mary, perhaps you had somebody else, Mark hasn't confirmed with me that he doesn't want to do it. But you did have somebody else who was interested.
Yeah, Chris Collins, who's a new member of the CSAC committee. She lives down here.
Interested in doing.
Being the Tompkins County
EMC.
Environmental Management Council representative. Top of the next
Okay.
page.
Oh.
Yeah, CHRIS. Collins.
And we appointed Chris to the Sustainability Committee already, I believe. in the last round.
Yeah, so she, and she's actually been to an EMC committee meeting, so she's pretty interested in, functioning in that capacity, so you haven't heard back from her?
I did not, and I did ask him to reach out before
I mean-
yesterday, so I think that,
It seems to me if he's interested, he'd get back to you, I don't know.
I agree, so that's why I left it TBD.
Yeah.
Because I honestly didn't remember the name of who you had talked about.
Okay,
But I do remember that you had a name,
yeah,
so
yeah,
wonderful. I'd be perfectly amenable to appointing Chris Collins to that
Okay.
position. Does that work for everybody else?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
great,
We still don't have somebody for the Youth County Services Board. That has been, we'll do another round of recruitment on that. Because we also have a youth commission position open. So we'll combine the two of those. And most of these are continuity from previous years. This isn't a
so did both of those youth commission reps resign?
no, Zahn, so the position that's open, the Tompkins County Youth Services Board has not actually been filled by somebody in Ulysses in the 3 years I've been on the board. And we do have one vacancy. Zahn has been one of the town liaisons, a town appointments to the youth commission. And his business is booming and he just doesn't have time to commit right now. He wished us all, health and happiness. There was nothing contentious about it.
Right.
He just doesn't have the time right now, but we'll get into that. That's in the committee section. So, but we'll do another round of advertising for the youth services board. I'd really like to get somebody on there, but it's hard to strap another town board member onto yet another assignment. Any questions on the rest of it? The rest is effectively the same as it was last year in terms of positions.
That's good.
Okay, yeah. All those in favor, I will move resolution 23. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Fine.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, the next one is the planning board and board of zoning appeals. And I have, between Rich and I, we confirmed with everybody who was up for either reappointment or new appointments. This returns Linda Little to the planning board.
So we still need to find some alternates for the.
It's
planning board.
LIDD.
Mhm.
Oh, thank you.
If anyone knows of anyone or might want to be an alternate, bring them forth.
Now,
We did have, I sent you the application of somebody
Oh, okay,
who was interested in planning. I thought would be a good,
okay, when
I'll resend it. I sent it last week.
you could, yeah.
Yeah, I'll resend it to you. A design professional, which is
Okay,
great.
cool. When, Mary?
so are people, I know there was a concern that maybe people were not doing their 4 hours of
Right,
education every year. Who are on the planning board. So is that something that we keep track of or?
It does, when we get to resolution 28. I have actually modified resolution 28, which is 2 pages farther. I modified that resolution to codify that. The way this resolution had previously been related to staff training was that the clerk was responsible for managing all of that documentation. But and this will continue that the clerk is responsible for managing all of that documentation, because by state law, the planning board has to undergo, planning and zoning have to undergo 4 hours of training a year. But the town board had never designated someone to actually be the enforcement power for those 4 hours. And so in the resolution that's coming up, I actually designate the town planner as being responsible for, and if, and then the town planner then has to turn over the records to the clerk for maintenance of records. But that makes it very clean that it's not Chris's job to be tracking these people down.
Makes sense.
So,
So do we know if they had training in?
I don't, I can't tell you
22?
off the top of my head. I can check with Niels on
So
it.
can we have Neil send out an email to everyone,
Sure.
or let them know
Yeah.
that this is required and they should do it by the end of the first quarter or something?
It would make sense for them to be trained as early in the year
Early
as
as
possible.
possible, right?
And it's a real wide range of things you can use for training purposes.
I'm sure it's all online too.
It's
so
all online now.
Easily accessible.
That has been a huge COVID benefit. Okay, I'm just gonna get an email started to Neil, so I don't forget to do it.
I just sent them one.
Oh, thank you. Never mind. Wonderful.
All right, so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Um,
Aye. Okay, now we're repealing, so based on how much has changed, and we're seeing the repeals of vaccination requirements. Just the Congress has gotten away with, or not gotten away with. That's an interesting choice of words. They have gone away with a requirement for the military. Based on public health practices, they're estimating that basically all Americans have either had the virus or been vaccinated for the virus. And that vaccination is requirement as for employment is no longer pertinent, frankly, to town residents or to town employees. So I'm proposing that we repeal the vaccination policy.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It served its purpose when we had it. But the times have changed. Okay, approval of amended and updated policies. Okay, this is that fun section where we're gonna talk about our policy update. Okay, Lexi, can I, actually, what I'll do is I'll do mine first because it's super easy. So, the diversity, equity, and inclusion policy, we adopted it in July of 2021. And, I am proposing, it's a pretty short policy, so I actually did, include the changes. You can see them on a strike through, because it's not hard to follow along. I wanted to modify the section on accountability so that it was actually more functional and more timely as opposed to how it was originally drafted. How it was originally drafted, and I take responsibility for that, is that the town board would be updated on an annual basis about how we were doing in compliance with it. There's never been a complaint made, an official complaint made under the DEI policy. And I think that waiting till February of every year to give you an update is not necessarily appropriate, because this is most likely going to be triggered when somebody has a complaint or an issue. And so this would shift to updating the town board if any complaints or violations are submitted under the policy within 30 days of submission. The town board will review the policy, as we are supposed to anyway, for other policies at the town's annual organizational meeting. So instead of doing an annual report, I'm suggesting that if there are any complaints under it, that they're reported to the town board.
Who do the complaints get submitted to?
I'm your DEI officer at the moment.
Okay, so they're submitted to you.
Yes.
Okay.
So you just reappointed me to this position, which is not. We actually had some informal DEI concerns this past calendar year, but the board is aware of those. Who they're related to, so.
So if a complaint is submitted to you, then you would bring it to us?
Yes. Yeah, within 30
What if
days.
somebody is complaining about the town supervisor
Right.
though?
Um,
Seems like you'd need a secondary person or.
How does Blixie feel about being a secondary person?
I'm happy to do that. Also, if
Yeah,
someone has a serious issue, also, you have your harassment and discrimination policy as well. So, I mean, and that has alternate procedures in it as well. I'm just saying, but
Oh, okay.
I'm
That's-
okay being the secondary
I
person.
remember when we passed this, that was the thing.
Yeah,
So are you okay leaving that? If not, we can add a resolution to the end of the packet and appoint Blixie as the secondary
Nah, that's
DEI. Okay.
it's okay for me.
Wouldn't that fall under the harassment and discrimination policy compliance officers, or is that?
So, I mean,
So
it
it was
was always, I mean, I think a lot of cases, people would probably go after, would initially complain under the harassment policy, would be my guess. But Blixie at that point, or the other compliance officer, Michelle, could say at that point, this really actually falls more under our DEI policy, this is where, but someone could always file a complaint, and the way, and the filing of a complaint can be as simple as notification verbally to someone, or sending an email, or another written form. I mean, it's you don't have to fill out a particular form to do it, it's simply
Right. You
doing those things triggers the process.
Okay.
you
So-
can fill out a form, but you can also just talk to somebody too. Yeah.
So, does the board have any concerns about the alterations to the DEI policy?
No.
No.
Okay, so I would. So we can move,
Did you have Nikki?
yes, yeah, he's been through all these policies,
Okay.
right? Nate, can I suggest you give your thumbs up? You have reviewed all of them and thumbs up them.
Yes, yep.
This is the most policies we have ever tackled in a town board meeting, I think, in living memory, in actual edits. So, and we owe, I did the easy one. Blixie took on the lion's share of wrangling other policies. So, may we next move to the, draft capital asset and inventory policy?
You do them together.
Yeah, we're gonna do them all at once if they're okay. Otherwise, we'll pull out. Then
Wait,
amend the
wait, wait,
resolution.
we're almost on 27.
We're,
Yeah.
we're on 26.
Oh, okay.
So that was just, we have these 5 policies to go through. Blixie, do you want to talk, is there anything you can update us on the capital asset inventory policy?
Well, let me
Michelle?
just say that this is a new policy. It's something that you didn't have before. Michelle drafted it and we reviewed it. She and I reviewed it, and then the finance committee reviewed it. It's really just about documenting what thresholds we have for capitalization of fixed assets and inventory procedures. So it's a pretty standard policy. There's really nothing unusual about it. But that's what that is. So Mary and Rich could certainly comment on it if you have anything else, because we did discuss it in detail in the finance committee.
Yeah, totally reasonable.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's no issue.
Okay, great. Did anybody else have any questions about this one?
Who's considered a 9? Who's considered the town property manager? Just from my understanding.
I don't think we've actually, that's a great question. Michelle, have we ever designated
We haven't, nope. We have not.
but we couldn't
Um,
designate a property manager until we had a policy thereby to
Yeah,
designate
no, that's fine.
a property manager. So why don't we, I will add that to our agenda for, next Tuesday's meeting. We can do a designation on that. Okay, great, thanks, Liz. If no one has, I'm not trying to rush anybody through the policies, but if you don't have any other questions. I also don't want you to have to hang out on them. Investment policy, this is a goodie to update. Cause it's our policy originally from 94.
Yes, and so what you have here is a policy that mirrors what the current regulations are from the comptroller's office, essentially, and follows the recommendations from legal counsel because they reviewed it in detail. And so it just incorporates all of that as it's applicable to the town of Ulysses. So if you were to read on the comptroller's website a model policy, it has everything in the kitchen sink in there. We basically use that model and then took out the things that simply don't apply to us, like investing in repurchase agreements and things that we just don't do. And again, the finance committee reviewed it in detail. So there's a lot of changes from the 1994, was that the year policy? Just because the world has changed. But there's really nothing substantively different in it. It basically says, this is where we do our banking. This is the types of things we can invest our money in, legally, what we're allowed to do. It also says that we have to have collateral. So if we have more than FDIC covered amount in the bank, in any one bank, then they have to provide collateral to back those assets so that if something happened, our assets would always be covered. And so it speaks to the collateral agreement. And again, these are things we've always done. It just updates it to mirror current laws and regulations. So just to give you an overview of what the policy does, what it says, because it's kind of, legalese to some degree.
Well, I think that I've really appreciated the finance committee in terms of how much effort you've put into helping us bring some of our financial practices into the 21st century. And additionally, we'll be talking about at the meeting on next Tuesday about doing further investment for what I understand is a recommendation from the finance committee. So any questions for Blixie or for finance on the investment policy? Okay.
Just one, are they still called Tompkins Community Bank?
They are now Tompkins Community Bank. They were Tompkins Trust Company.
Okay, just want to make.
They just recently changed their name. So if it needs to be updated in the policy, I can't remember, we could do that. No, that's the procurement. Trying to keep them all up here. Oh, it is correct in the policy. Okay. I just couldn't remember what the timing of that was.
Seems like a big step for a bank to take, because that would really frustrate, I would think, some policies and things, but anyway, changing the name, but.
Well, they're not technically a trust company. They're really a bank. So I think it sort of, but it is a big shift for everybody when they're used to calling it a certain thing. Yeah.
Excellent. Any other questions? Then I'll accept a motion to approve. Oh, I'm sorry. No, sorry. Never mind. No, can't. No, not yet. Sorry. I have to keep going through our policies. I was getting ahead of myself. Okay, procurement policy.
Okay. So I don't know, maybe I know you and Michelle spent more time on this procurement policy, and certainly the finance committee did as well than me, but basically it's updating it to include some new thresholds for approvals required by the board to allow for operational activities to go more smoothly. So again, the procurement policy just generally is to define how you're going to do purchasing when it falls below the thresholds of the law. So there are larger thresholds where the law requires you to do bidding and procurement and according to the law. So for public works contracts, it's 35,000, and for others, it's 20. So what do you do below those thresholds where the law says you have to do it a certain way? And that's what this policy does. So in the previous policy, some of the thresholds for requiring more approval and board approval were lower. And it just creates a lot of challenges. So some of those thresholds have been raised. It's also been changed to reflect the fact that the highway superintendent has certain authorities in the law once you approve their 248 agreement, which you did earlier today. And also to acknowledge that there might be some preferences we might want to have in terms of using local vendors or other things like that. And so that's been incorporated into this policy.
And one thing to note is that on the second page under item 3, exceptions, so right here in the middle of the page, is where we'd be authorizing the highway superintendent to incur expenses not to exceed $6,000. Previously, that was $4,000, and it's been $4,000 for a really long time, and it just does not account as like, good luck finding a repair that's under $4,000. And sometimes these repairs, while it might not trigger an emergency, they do need to be done in a timely way to get into especially now with labor challenges. And so we're proposing increasing it by $2,000 to $6,000. I just wanted to flag that in particular.
I had a question on the 6,000, three written fax quotations. Does that, how easy is it to get 3 quotations?
The 3 quotes are for trigger between 10,000.
Or 6 and 19 on the purchase contract,
Oh, purchase contract.
and then 10 to 30s.
So I think Nate could probably help specify this even more clearly, but you basically have to show a good faith that you attempted to get that many. And if sometimes there's a situation where it's really just a sole proprietor because of where we live. You could get another quote from somebody who's in Pennsylvania, but that doesn't necessarily make sense. Nate, would you mind clarifying that?
You said it exactly right. It's documenting either the 3 quotes or your efforts to obtain the 3 quotes. And then the board's review, your questioning of the department head would be, what were your efforts, to get the quotes? And that's where the documentation showing, I tried calling, I reached out, nobody responded. There is nobody else locally or within a reasonable range that satisfies the obligation.
Okay,
Can I
right.
suggest that we maybe add that language to the policy? Or if people want to question.
Yeah, that's true when you're doing bidding too. Like if you solicit bids and you only get one, you have to document what you did, but it just is what it is. So
You'll see at the top of page 3 of the procurement policy, the languages are there already, I think. A good faith effort shall be made to obtain the required number of proposals or quotes. If you're unable to do it, document the attempts made.
all right.
Yep.
Cool.
Do you want to add email PDF quotes to that? Not many people use faxes anymore.
Right, that's true.
Because a lot of what we see come across the board are email quotes that have been sent, like
Well, is email written or is it something else?
with PDF. Oftentimes they're. I don't know if that's acceptable or not, but
Nate, or Lexi?
if you just said written quotes, that's fine. Because whether it comes by an email and you can print the email, it's a written quote, or whether it comes by fax, whether it's somebody hands you a piece of paper, it's written.
As opposed to spoken.
Spoken.
Correct.
Yes.
As opposed to I called some guy and he said he'd charge me this on the phone. So,
So would you recommend then just striking the fax part completely, or?
you could just say written. I think that covers any kind of medium.
Okay, so we would nix
Strike fax.
in there, I think 4 different locations on that page, on page 2. So we would strike. this is one of the policies, this is like the policy that I feel like, other than personnel, that we use constantly. And so this is really reflective of trying to adapt the policy to actually fit using it. Because we were running into some challenges operating under the existing policy. So,
The other thing I just want to mention that towards the end of the policy, there's reference to, it is a law, so it's not like it's our choice, about public works contracts. I mean, that's important for the board, I think, to be aware of. Because just hiring a cleaner for your building is a public works contract. So you have to pay prevailing wage if you're hiring a company to do that. So that's something that, Michelle, I think, has been very attuned to, because it's something that we're obligated by law to comply with. So it's in the policy.
Mike.
oh, yeah, thank you. So I've got to get over my keys. You don't click today.
Oh.
So Mitch take over right now.
Boy, I can use my power.
Same thing. Okay. Okay, anything else on the procurement policy? Excellent. Okay, so small amendments. For that, for the resolution. Okay. And then personnel. So you have section 800. I did provide via email the entire thing. The entire thing is 99 pages. I did not print it out for you. But these are the section 800 on elected officials is new to the policy. And it covers the bulk of the changes that were made to the policy itself. And then there's also an accompanying form that an elected official would have to sign should they acknowledge, or should they desire long-term disability coverage. This would allow the benefit to long-term disability coverage for elected officials. It's frankly, it's probably not likely to be used, but the way the elected official positions work is that the person can hold the office for their entire elected period unless they are removed from office. And removal from office is very expensive process that the town board would have to undertake to go to the court to forcibly remove a town or an elected official if they were in violation of their duties. And this provides a way for if, for instance, a highway superintendent was injured on the job, they might need to be in a situation where just quitting may not be financially possible for them for a period of time.
Although injured on the job is workers' comp. I'm just gonna say that's.
Thank you. So, but you could be injured.
Let's say they find out they have cancer.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be, they're gonna go through 2 years of treatments and surgeries, but they might be able to come back. Or they might be permanently unable to work, but this would give them some protection in a case like that.
And it would also make more money in the pocket of the town to be able to ensure that the town can pay for the duties to be performed that need to be performed.
Correct. So the signing off on the form indicates they're accepting the insurance coverage in lieu of pay for that amount of money, and the town can take that amount of money and use it to compensate other people to get the work done in that time frame. So that's essentially how this works.
So that's one of the changes. The other changes is that we are making it very, very clear the town board member that elected officials are not entitled to some of the benefits that full-time employees are entitled to, but also recognizing that in particular, the three full-time elected officials are primarily doing this. I mean, I am the exception, not the rule, are doing this as a full-time job. And it's not like you can go out and have a second job easily. particularly in the clerk and superintendent's offices. So trying to balance the being, because in my opinion, it's not in the town's interest to turn these jobs into something only that somebody who's already effectively retired and who has financial security outside the office can do. These are full-time positions. And if, trying to find that balance, and that's why we provide health insurance. But we don't provide vacation. So.
Yeah, so this section really just outlines, it makes it very clear, there's no leave accruals, right? And if you're full-time, you can access health insurance. And it shows how that works. And same thing for retirees who are full-time if they meet the requirements of the retiree benefits. But it's kind of delineates more specifically how things work for elected officials, even the fact that you're paid on a different schedule than other employees. So, and then the rest of the policy, all those references to elected officials that were sort of embedded in all of the sections have been removed. And this is really the guiding section on what applies. So there's a lot of stuff that does apply because there's simply town operational policies, code of ethics, things like that, that applies to everybody, including elected officials. And then it's clear what is different and unique for them. And that's what's listed here in that section 800. I would say the other changes in the policy, I mean, again, the Finance Committee has looked at the whole thing a couple of times, I'm pretty sure, if not more. And the minor changes really are more corrective. But for example, we do have a long-term disability policy for our Class A and B employees. And that wasn't referenced at all, right? But it's been true now for over a year that we've had that policy. So that's now in this policy. But if you looked at the whole document, you'd see it there. So those are the kinds of other changes. They are not a change in what we're doing, but mainly a reflection of our current practice.
Any questions, discussion?
Would that go beyond their term of office?
If someone was, are you asking about disability?
They would get insurance payments, but not the town payments.
Correct. Yes,
So
if
the way-
someone,
For them.
yeah, if someone was permanently disabled, even after they're, say they can't work at all, and so they're not rerunning for office and they're done, if they meet the requirements of the insurance policy, they'll still get covered by that policy till they're eligible for Social Security.
Yeah, because you want to make sure if they lose their office because of a disability, you would want to protect them.
Right.
As long as possible.
Right.
Correct. This does that for them.
Okay.
And I see it as really saving the town, the process of, it would just be messy, right? To go to forcibly remove a public officer is a expensive and publicly messy process to go through.
Certainly don't want to do
Wait,
it.
let me clarify this. So on this disability coverage, I agree to accept a long-term disability payment in lieu of 60% of the salary. Is it, but doesn't that stop if they're not, if
Yes.
they're not working?
Right, if they're
not elected.
if they stop being elected, they stop being entitled to a salary.
Right.
And so they would lose all of that money
Right.
completely. The town would not be paying them any additional money after that.
Is that,
Blixie, it's
is that clear?
I think so.
under state law. We would have no mechanism to pay them
Right.
as an elected official when they're not
Not
elected.
elected.
So, yeah.
Well, that's not clear because we're paying them retired elected officials,
We're not paying them a salary.
but we're paying their medical coverage.
Well, that's,
That's under the retiree benefits. Yeah.
Okay. All right,
we're gonna look at that too.
we're looking at that.
Oh, yeah. That'll be the coming year's excitement.
Okay, so I wanted to wait till Michael is back so he can vote on this. Does anybody else want to take a very brief 2-minute break? Then we can adopt all the policies at once. Or do you
The
want
whole list on the next couple of pages.
No, number 26 would be amending and updating these policies.
Oh, okay.
And then this one includes all of the different policies of which we're basically affirming these. But we're not actually making any changes in 27.
Nate, I had a question for you. If we change let's say the retiree benefit policy on Medicare or reimbursement or percentages, does that have to get approved by the union?
Yes, it would.
Okay.
It's a negotiated benefit.
Mhm.
Right. So we can't do anything until the next union contract when it comes up, if we want to change.
If the
Um,
union agrees during the, life of the current contract to an amendment, that's okay. But it needs to be negotiated.
I mean, you changed your health insurance and you had to do an MOA with the union to do that. So the same thing would be true here.
But if you change the benefit for retired elected officials, that would not need to be run
If it
through the.
was, if it was only for elected officials, if
Yeah.
you
Right.
change anything that affects any other employee,
Right,
that would have to be approved by the union.
right. Okay. But we could unilaterally change the elected official retiree policy without the union's consent.
Correct.
Okay. So Liz, we have this ongoing thing about retired elected officials
Mhm.
benefits. Because some of us
Yeah.
think they're really way too generous.
Well, especially when they retire at, 60 and they
60,
live
they
to
could live to
95. That's,
A lot of-
more money than they made
Right,
when they were working.
that's the problem with, that's why there's no more, pensions. In private, but basically, because the longevity factor is crazy. In terms of the amount of money question.
Oh, defined benefit.
Defined
pensions,
benefit
Yeah,
plans, yeah.
That was the way to get state employees
What?
well,
years and years and years ago.
What?
Was the way to get state.
Yeah.
employees years
yeah,
ago.
yeah.
So you guys are considering making some updates and changes to that
Yeah,
policy?
yeah.
well, I mean, we have state retirement. We're the law requires us, I think.
Right.
The state retirement is mandatory for full-time employees, not for part-time employees. It's just available to part-time.
Okay, let's go.
So, I would accept a motion on resolution 26 to amend the policies discussed. Excellent. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Right.
Aye.
Okay. And then we're acknowledging the following policies. That we have and in some cases don't have. On the next page, you can see the town does not have these policies. But these are policies that we are moving towards creating. And the dates will be adjusted, the ones that are highlighted, dates will be adjusted to reflect the updated adoption of the ones we already just adopted.
Well, are we on 27 now?
Yeah, we're at 27.
So the alcohol and controlled substance thing, the note is we need to be updated in 2022 to refer to legalized marijuana. We didn't do that.
So
Right?
we're working through that process because it's more complicated. It's on my list to deal with, Nate. Part of the problem is that we have to do some more investigation because marijuana has been legalized in New York State, but it has not been legalized federally. And so we have to look into the certification process because we don't want to say something can be allowed that actually will invalidate someone's certification that's happening on a level above New York State's. So if they have any federal certifications, that would trigger whether or not we could allow them to have it. Does that make sense? Because they could invalidate their own certifications because something is legal in New York but not legal federally. So it's more complicated than just saying that we're changing our policy. So, and the other question is that we have to deal with is whether or not this will have to go through union review also. And that's the other. So it has not been updated yet. We don't have to say, to the best of my knowledge, we don't have to say it's okay to use marijuana. So there's no legal requirement to have to change it. What we have is legal right now, but we have to have that conversation, and it's more of a it's a more complicated conversation than just adding it to the policy. Does that make sense?
That's for the drug testing they have to do, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And marijuana is one of those hard ones, is it shows up in your system even if you're not actively under its influence. So it's not like alcohol. Like once alcohol's out of your system, you know, it's out of your system. So it's not a simple switch. And so we're trying to parallel what other municipalities are doing.
Just
So
change that to 2023.
yeah, we can just change that to 2023. But we're not in legal violation right now.
You say will need to be, it really doesn't have to be.
We don't have to.
So I take out the word need there in the note.
Review.
Consideration or review.
Yeah. Look at it, we'll review,
Consider
yeah.
instead of need. And we are not alone in trying to figure this out.
Yeah.
You have entities who are just not even testing for it at all. But then that runs the risk that you can't test if someone might be under the influence. So it's,
Okay,
so these documents will be taken on the town's website. And each employee and elected or appointed official, except the town clerk's office. I'm sorry, town court's office, because they fall under a completely different set of requirements. She'll sign off that they've read and understand the following policies within 1 month of hiring or taking office: personnel, alcohol, controlled substance, ethics, workplace violence, and sexual harassment. And then resolved annually that all employees and elected or appointed officials will sign off on the code of ethics, workplace violence, and sexual harassment. And the reason there's some duplication is that it's really so that everybody has to deal with code of ethics, workplace violence, and sexual harassment. Everybody that's really involved in the town has to do that. But not everybody has to deal with the personnel policy or the alcohol and controlled substance testing policy.
So can I ask
yeah.
a question about this? So I know when we're hiring, I'm, making sure people are signing off on all of that. It's in their file. You gonna set up a procedure to do this annually? No. Because that hasn't been true to the best of my knowledge, or maybe I'm just dreaming.
no, I don't think we've had a system for following at least elected officials getting trained annually.
Well, training, yes. Signing off on the policies, that's what I'm asking about.
It's supposed to be maintained in the clerk's office.
Yeah, I have that documentation,
Yeah, she has it.
but maybe we should coordinate on that.
Okay, but annually, we do that annually? Okay. I just didn't realize that, I'm sorry.
Lexi might be suggesting that she didn't sign hers last year, but I know you did because you came to our training.
Well, if it's part of the training, that's fine. I understand that. And yes, I know everyone came to the training. So if it's a part of your training process, that's great. I just want to make sure there wasn't something I was supposed to be doing as the personnel person
At
that
this,
I should
at
be
this
doing. That's all.
no, I mean, we can talk about that internally, but that's, we really took a huge, and I credit Michelle with this, we took a huge step in the right direction with establishing our annual training last year
Yeah, that
in a
was
very
great.
consolidated fashion that was recorded, so that when we had a new employee in September, we were able to just send him the link so he could watch the videos and be fully up to train the way everybody who was there in person was. So it was wonderful to have that codified, and we will continue doing that moving forward. Any further questions or comments on this resolution? Then I will move it, number
Second.
27. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Okay, mandatory annual training. So this, one of the fun things I learned last year, was that employees is a term that applies to everybody who works in the town, whether you are paid or not. And under HR and under for legal purposes, that is true. So that's why I specified in this resolution, including elected and appointed officials and committee members. So you can see the things that everybody has to do, and then what specifically the 4-hour mandated for planning and zoning boards and all staff. Also, and for emergency preparedness. And so in moving to the new way that we have done our annual training, the trainings for these 4 requirements for everybody can be done in person or by going through our training after the fact. And signing off on those policies. Does anybody have any questions about this? Oh, this is the part what I specified. Mary, you had the question about the 4 hours of training. This is where I specified that the town planner shall oversee the planning board and zoning board fulfilling training fulfillment
So you're
requirements.
gonna set this up so we can come to a training, is that what you're saying?
We did it last, like we
Right,
did
we
last
did
year.
last
Yep, we'll do another one. I think we're looking at April. Michelle, is that correct? Am I remembering correctly?
Yeah, April or May, probably.
Winter is hard to get highway. Because so much goes into scheduling and then one, snowstorm wrecks everything. Okay, is there a motion to approve resolution 28?
So moved.
Second, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Number 29 is new, is that correct, Michelle? The mandatory review of all accidents?
Yes, so this is something that was a seed that was planted at the safety committee level. And so has recently we've been realizing, and the other thing was that this was based on a request from our general liability insurance to have this process in place. So, and recently internally, we've been realizing that this is very helpful for just general documentation purposes beyond anything else. Our insurance likes to see it, but also it's very helpful internally.
Any questions about this?
Is that, okay, to the safety committee?
If everybody's okay with it, I would move resolution 29.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and number 30 is a record management role or position, which we're appointing the town clerk again, Krista as a record management officer, and she has proposed us discussing the part that's highlighted. The town board shall be notified of freedom of information request. Krista, did you brought this to my attention?
Yeah, this was a couple of years ago, I think someone requested that this happen, and I was just wondering if people still want to have that be policy.
Why wouldn't we?
I mean, most of the FOIL requests we get are like from a company who just wants our purchasing records. And it's legal for them to do that, but we get those like 4 times a year. And it's kind of a drag, but that's how it is.
Have we been getting those?
Yeah, no,
We haven't been getting them.
no.
But she puts in her report, just the number of FOIL requests she
Right.
gets.
True, but yeah, I just wanted to check in and see if you still want me to forward you stuff.
So we would just be notified of them.
I would just forward you the email and say, here's the request that I got.
I think it's interesting to know
Okay.
who's FOIA us. Doesn't hurt.
Okay, any other questions on this? We'll maintain it then as it's written. Motion to approve resolution 30,
Yes.
second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, gifts from town to other parties. So we are not supposed to be gift givers. And so we're not supposed to give things as gifts, but we can hold recognition events and provide refreshments.
Yeah.
So any questions or concerns about this?
No, so moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So fees and penalties. Let me say that it was lovely, lovely, lovely to have a planning and zoning officer on staff. In helping prepare this, because Niels was able to undertake research. The last time we did a research process was back in 2020. And 2020 and 2021 a little bit, if I'm remembering correctly. And Sarah did some research into fees. And then it turns out, this was in 2020, and then in 2021, like all municipalities apparently increased their fees and we didn't, because we seemed like we were in line with them. And so when Niels actually did a review, he found that we were on the low end, very low end in some cases.
So does
fees
this
for
10%
planning and zoning.
proposal represent bringing us in line?
No, 20% would bring us in line. What I'm proposing we do is 20% would basically put us at the very top. We're anticipating that if we go 10% this year and another 10% next year, then we'll be back in parity. This brings us a lot closer. I mean, we're not in bad shape, but I'm trying to be mindful of some of our fees have not been adjusted in more than a decade. And so we don't want to do that. So what I'm actually proposing is for this year, we jumped 10% in most of them. Next year, we jumped 10%, and then we established an ongoing, basically cost of living adjustment that just is built into our fees, just increase with inflation.
Okay.
So, so you can see where the fees, I did a comparison. So you can see where the increases are happening. They're not going on all of the, building code, operating fees maintain the same, fireworks maintain the same.
So with the operating permits for special event planned adjustment in 2023. If you get in a neighborhood that revert to the 2022 fee, if we haven't. If we
You haven't
haven't
adjusted
adopted
it.
yet.
Yeah, because it's established by law.
Right.
So that's not a fee that we would change. We can legally change at this meeting. We have to change it. We want to change that fee. But I wanted to throw that in there because I know we do have that's been at least a consideration.
But on these building permits, we're not increasing anything except the accessory building by 10 cents.
Building permits, so it's going from, in a lot of cases, 30 cents a square foot to 40 cents.
225 plus 4K.
Yeah,
$4 a pound.
So any of the columns that are blank or just refer to 2022 rates, right?
see which one are you looking at in particular?
Dog fees?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, all that stuff, that's-
So can we finish up, can we go through the building permit parts and see if you have any building and code and just, I would love to answer any questions there if you, and then we can, then I want to talk about EMS because it comes next, because there are adjustments in EMS.
I mean, did Mark come up with this? Who came, or the planner? Who suggested these building permit changes?
Mark,
Okay, and this brings us in line with the village.
it brings us in line more with, they both did a search of other townships. I directed them to really look at the towns and to look for parity with the towns.
Are there 2 SWIP review 3 fees? For. There's 2 line items.
Can you tell me which one are you looking at? I'm sorry.
Under planning and zoning. Down at the bottom of, I don't know what page number we're on.
Yes,
Right there.
so we just can, we'll eliminate that one. Thank you for catching that. You know how long we've been working on this document?
Sorry.
For months, months, we have been working on this document. Thank you for catching that. Any other questions on building and inspection?
Under building permit, the last line, any building begun without a blank.
Valid for building permits, now the next.
Yeah, right, it's just a little. It's a little confusing because it's gonna be double the normal fee, but then the blanks. Next to the valid building permit, can that be cleaned up so it's
Oh, yeah, this document is gonna be, so this will go in, so this document becomes part of the minutes. So this isn't the final posted one, so this is just a draft version, so.
so it'll be clear? Okay.
And once approved, all these updated costs and fees will go on the website too.
Not instantaneously, but
No.
yes. Any other questions on building and permit? If not, I'd like to talk about emergency medical services. So our normal operating pattern has been to mirror the village. The village updated theirs. I worked with Ben Carver on this, who is the EMS representative for the village board. And he was very helpful, and the village adopted some new fees, increased fees in some cases and new fees in others. And I highlighted the ones in red that are new fees that the village is charging. Historically, if the local ambulance showed up to someone's house and helped them but did not transport them, there has been no charge. The village made the decision, and it's something I agree with, that a nominal fee for this service is necessary given the demand for the service. So the village has already adopted a $75 fee for treat and release. So that's one thing that is different. And then another thing that's different has been added is the motor vehicle accident, including non-transport. This $450 fee refers to showing up at an accident and participating in that process. And it actually gets billed to the car insurance. The way this all frustratingly works, and you might already be aware of it, so apologies, is that we can set whatever rates we want for the rest of this stuff. And insurance will say, well, we only pay $150. So we're only going to pay you $150. You could be charging us $1,000 and this is all you're going to get. With the vehicle accident one, because it's not a health insurance charge, it's an accident vehicle insurance charge.
Right.
The village is actually seeing some an influx of money related to this. And the long and short of it is the cost for these particular medical services are on a year-to-year basis are increasing between 8 and 10%. We've got to drive more revenue.
Okay. So have you increased the ones in black?
Yes, so everything in here, not everything in here got increased. The ALS 1, ALS 2, BLS emergency, these all increased. Also, the ground transport per mile increased, and these are all bringing us in parallel with the village.
Now, what's the difference between specialty care and specialty care transport?
That's a great question.
Because you have an NA next to transport.
Mhm.
So-
Maybe they changed the description or something.
So can somebody figure that out?
I can certainly ask. This is the specialty care transport was a continuation of 2022. What was adopted.
I wonder if that's like their 5 points transport that they do with it. So
Mm.
could be.
But that wouldn't be somebody in our town that we wouldn't be charging anybody for that. I would anticipate that specialty care plus ground transport would be the
Right,
specialty care
right.
transport. do you want to strike this and bring it back and check into it and bring it back on a town board meeting?
Just ask and update it.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm good with it. Not like I have much choice, right?
Right,
Yeah.
well, we do have a choice on these fees.
I think we decided a couple of years ago to try to,
Years ago.
yeah, mirror them and stay
Right,
up to
that's
date
what we're
with what they're
trying to do.
charging, so we
Right.
don't have to.
Right, I think that's really important.
well, I can, if you want to just go ahead and adopt, and I can do a follow-up on this one in
Okay.
particular.
Yeah.
Sure, okay. Okay. Madam Clerk, your fees are up next. Is there anything you wanted to tell us about dogs in the town of Ulysses?
So as far as the offenses. I am hoping to make it so that after 3 years, someone can start at the top of the offense structure again and get $25. Instead of moving to $100 and possibility of jail. Or whatever.
So
the-
why is that stricken
It's strict,
after 3 years of no offense?
it's stricken because the dog licensing penalties are established in local law. So the town board at a resolution, an organizational meeting cannot override local law. We actually need to amend the local law.
Oh,
And so and this is why it's always good to have new people in the process. And so when Nate reviewed our organizational package, he's like, yeah, you can't do that. We have been doing it. That's been language that's been in there for the last several years. But it's actually not legal because we just need, so this is so we're discovering there are these incidences throughout the town that none of them honestly are huge issues, but it's all these little minor tweaks we need to make to some local laws to bring us in line with actual legal practice.
And I think it's just a good reminder for when we're writing and
Exactly.
policies and local laws to give ourselves the flexibility to make these changes by resolution. This because this local law is from 2010, so we,
Right.
you know, that 2010 law was locked in. That
Right.
those are the fees. Period.
So we're actually, so and to Chris's point, which I thought was an excellent one, when she and I were talking, which is why don't we, as long as it's legally allowed, why don't we build that flexibility into an updated law?
Right.
So that the town board could actually establish the fees at this organizational meeting and adapt moving forward. That's how you don't get stuck with the same fee for
Good
20
point.
years.
Okay, cool.
But I only did the cross out so for
Right.
the preservation of
Yeah,
our
I understand.
understanding. So.
All right, good.
We are looking at a lot of this, the water hookup fees are a maintenance of 2022 in large measure because there's not been capacity. A lot of these are based on costs that we can't control. And then the water department did not have time to go do a permit inspection of all the other townships, but we felt that this was at least a maintenance of continued use. And then Carissa did the updating of the on the next page, the updating of the water rates, water sales. And added for 2023 is water sales to users in districts 1 and 2, a late fee of 10%. That's a new addition. Chris, and then,
That's correct.
yeah,
They've never, yeah. So I'm like, this is a whole bigger conversation about water districts.
so any questions on that? Pretty straightforward. And then the code of planning and zoning penalties, we're really not adopting these, we're really just recognizing that what exists in local law, these penalties are built into local laws, so we're not making any changes to them. For code and planning and zoning penalties as well as water penalties.
Yeah.
So if anybody has any questions about that, this resolution is obviously there's a lot of stuff in this resolution. But if you're feeling good about that, then I will follow up with the specialty care transport.
This thing about flood damage and being in prison. Imprisonment, so I don't understand imprisonment.
I'm sorry, which part?
On flood damage and stormwater management, you go to prison.
Imprisoned up to 15 days.
And no, I think above that, up to 6 months.
So these are planning and zoning penalties. This is another fun thing I learned, are criminal violations, right, Nate? Yep, they are
That is
not
correct.
civil. They're criminal.
So is that a mis, one of them is imprisonment up to 6 days, the other two imprisonment up to 6 months, is that the case?
Could be a first offense, first,
Up to
second, third,
350 and or 6 days.
First, second, and third offenses.
get a little extra leeway with the first offense, but
Yeah, after
keep
that,
working on it.
the cuffs go
Yeah.
on.
Is that a state law?
Yeah, it's referred to there.
So it is good to note that we are just recognizing these are laws that have already been established. So
Okay.
this is not amended, we're not establishing these
Fair enough.
penalties,
Right.
we're just recognizing them. Any other questions in section 32, rotated 32? Then I will move to adopt. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Okay. Committees appointed by the town board. So. These were circulated in advance. And these reflect people who are already in place and who are continuing. And being reappointed.
I'll make a motion to accept the appointment.
Thank you, Mary. Is there any further discussion?
Tree advisory committee.
Yeah.
Last name there, is that correct?
I'm sorry.
On the tree advisory committee?
So these terms were established previously.
Okay.
So this reflects the continuity of those positions as already established to those term limits. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay.
I'm sorry, was there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
And in their absence of thanks to all of the many volunteers who make this town possible. Okay. Resolution 34 is it's our gatekeeper resolution. Which requires that if anything over $2,000 for grant funding or financing has to be reviewed by the town board. So none of us are, I'm not running out and applying for grants that cost more than that without your approval, and I never have. And I think this is great, a great resolution. It's the same one that you adopted last year. Any questions? Any comments?
It applies to us also. So-
Applies to everybody.
Yeah.
Yep. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Town board access to attorney services. We have established legal counsel already. This basically stipulates that if a town board member needs more than 2 hours of attorney time, that you need to basically route it through me, or have it authorized by the entire town board. It's never been an issue. It's certainly in my time. It means we want you to have access to the town attorney, but we also need to be mindful of using resources appropriately because our attorneys are our most expensive contract, at least at this point. So it's the same one we adopted last year. Does anybody have any questions on that?
Just you've got resolution
35 and 36,
6, so we should.
engineering service.
Oh, yeah, you can do
just
36
so
also.
just, yeah.
Yep. And same process. If you need more than 2 hours of time, come to the board or come to me. And we'll work it out.
Yeah,
Should that-
see the extra header there also.
Yeah, sure.
Resolution 22-35-36. Is that what you're just,
So that could bundle
that's
it.
just a grouping?
That's a grouping.
Okay,
So you
right.
can bundle those.
So moved.
Should that be resolution 2023?
It should, yes. The control fine didn't catch everything. Next one too. Fortunately, Chris will catch all of this when she's actually doing the rest of these ones. But it's good to catch it now. Thank you. For copy and pasting. So we had a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on attorneys and engineering services? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Contracts and annual payments. This is all reflected in this is all based on our budgeting process for the most part. It is, we're not adopting anything new, if that makes any sense. These numbers were all established through the budgeting process, or they're related to ongoing services, accounting service, the accounting software, things like that. So as long as it fits within the budget, or we have to do a budget modification. For instance, the Village of Trumansburg sidewalk clearing is based on village hourly rates. And that gets invoiced. That will most likely be updated at their next annual organizational meeting, which happens in a couple of months. So everything else is very specific fees reflected in the budget.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Distribution of organizational minutes. Once the minutes are completed for this meeting, the town board will make a motion to accept the minutes as a whole. And these minutes will be the final minutes of the meeting, and a complete version of the organizational meeting minutes will be distributed by the town clerk to all employees and elected officials within 14 days and posted on the website. There are a motion to approve this.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And then this is not a resolution. This is just notification to the town board. These are, and Blixie, your name is spelled correctly here. Like, I think, as soon as I said that. Does have the S in the correct spot. These are the appointments that are being made, that do not come under the board's approval process, but it's board notification. Any questions? Okay. And then our final resolution is appointing somebody to be our delegate at the AOT meeting. Michael, I see someone in the side row raising his hand.
Yay.
I believe you already even actually have your reservation, is that correct?
Yep.
Wonderful.
Okay, great. Have
There's
fun.
Delegate sign too. It's so much fun. They give you a sign.
Oh, really? At this convention?
That's the highlight of the show.
Right.
Oh, yeah. It's hilarious.
Bench.
Yeah.
Bring us a picture so I can
Oh,
put
okay.
the newsletter. I would love to.
I
put
did
it-
my picture with Schumer this year. That was my whole goal in life.
Well,
Okay.
bring us a picture and we'll put it in. So I would be happy to make the motion to approve Michael as our
Second.
representative. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. That gets us through the organizational. Did not beat last year's number, but we had policies this year, so last year was a good hour and a half. But we are almost done. Wanted to talk about cyber insurance coverage. cyber insurance coverage was something that we adopted for the first time last year. Largely coming out of the comptroller's audit that resulted in them focusing, because they couldn't find anything financial to sink their teeth into. They went after IT and cyber. So. And our insufficiencies, like all other townships our size. So, because of that, we were made aware of the potentially very high cost of what a cyber breach could do to us. In last year's numbers, it was estimated to cost the town $500,000 that would not be covered by insurance without a policy. If even 2,700 files were accessed in a breach. We have more files than that. So, that we did not want to spend all of our fund balance should we incur that kind of attack. And those kinds of attacks, we have been warned now repeatedly throughout this past year. I can get the terrifying messages that these kind, especially given what the instability in Ukraine and Russia, because that part of the world seems to enjoy cyber attacks in particular. In America, that this is a real potential threat and has cost other municipalities a lot of money. So we did proceed with cyber insurance. We budgeted for cyber insurance in the 2023 budget. However, Michelle, could you walk us through the fun discovery of what the cost, because these attacks are happening with more regularity, it is having a market effect on the cost of cyber insurance coverage. So I'm going to kick it off to you to go.
Sure, and I'll just start by saying that this isn't just cyber. The information that we're getting from our broker is that across the board, there's unprecedented things going on. For instance, Caitlin referred to the fact that it felt like pulling teeth getting quotes this year, and that was the same with all of our coverages. And our brokers are saying that they're getting pushed back. We're pushing our brokers to even get applications for coverage, and they're getting pushed back from the carriers. So everything was delayed longer because of what's going on with the market and inflation. So in cyber, what Caitlin said, they are becoming more common, and it's one of those fields, as we know, IT changes second by second. So it's one of those things that I think is going to just be getting more expensive because it's constantly changing, and finding coverage for it is going to be more difficult as we move forward. This is definitely a task that we're going to be taking a look at. We want to step back and look at insurance coverage in general, and make sure that we're approaching it in the correct way. So that's on the 2023 work plan. I do suggest that we get this cyber coverage, because it's like, what are we going to do if we do have an incident and we don't have coverage, sort of thing. It is the second year that we've got it, but the information that I'm getting from the insurance company, and actually I've talked to both I've talked to two different brokers, and they're both saying that this is, it's impossible to find cyber coverage right now. It's a very difficult thing especially for a municipality our size, but I do think we owe it to, it really is due diligence. So I think it's wise for us to get it. It's unfortunate how much it costs, but sort of the fact of the matter.
Would you explain to us how much we budgeted for and how much we did get the numbers from you from the insurance policy. I'll pull those back up for us. But there's a differentiation. This is the reason we're bringing it to you. It's because it exceeds the budget.
Correct. So during the budgeting season, we did leave in extra money in contingency, knowing that insurance coverage was a big unknown, and we were being told that there would be substantial increases. So we budgeted a total for just under $38,000 for insurance. So with our general liability,
that's all insurance, not just cyber.
Right. With between our general liability premium and the cyber, we would need to take about $1,300 from contingency. So we'd be using about $1,300 from contingency for that.
How much is the cyber portion?
The cyber portion of the quote is $4,325. which is up from about 2,900 last year. Is that correct, Michelle?
That sounds about right, yeah.
And that's part of the problem. It's like trying to get flood insurance right now.
Yeah, we got it.
We have to have it. I mean, I'm of the opinion that we have to have
But you
it.
don't have to have it. You could self-insure.
You could self-insure with our fund balance.
So is it worth 4,000 not to self-insure?
You
Would
would
that
have,
cover all the losses that would happen if there was a cyber attack?
don't know.
I think in the future, it's possible that we could decrease the amount that we have covered based on the IT and cybersecurity update that we're going to be pursuing this year. But at this point, with our, the current status that we have with our IT setup, I think it is wise for us to get this insurance. Maybe in the coming years, we'll have somebody on hand that can help with mitigating costs. But at this point, with our current setup, we don't have the support, we haven't instituted all of the cybersecurity updates that we would need to really feel comfortable not having this insurance. That's my opinion.
Rich, I can tell you, there's you can just find them, horror stories of municipalities being held hostage, having to pay ransoms, $500,000, $1 million out of pocket, 2 million. And then even without having to pay a ransom, the compliance costs for notifying everyone that needs to be notified, you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars simply to send out notices.
So what's the level of insurance we're buying? How much
Michelle, can you
insurance are we
specify
getting
that?
for 4,000?
500,000.
And is there any deductible on that?
The deductible is 1,000.
So anything over 500, we're liable for.
Correct.
Yes. And that was based on our assessment of how much it would cost really what Nate pointed out, the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right.
That's the administrative compliance side is going to cost us, we estimated when we went through a review with insurance brokers in 2021, that was that $500,000
Right.
benchmark.
Okay.
So,
All right.
I mean, there's no amount of coverage that could, we would have to decide whether or not we're saying goodbye to our files and just reestablishing them.
Right.
Well, if you do offsite backup,
Right.
you're pretty protected for that
I was
part.
curious about how
But
protected or exposed are we?
That's probably a conversation that we should move into executive session if we want to have a real in-depth conversation on that. I would say that based on the publicly available comptroller's report, I'd really recommend cyber insurance.
Yeah.
I think that would, for this
Yeah.
year, it's best practice.
Yeah, I'm in agreement also, I was just
Yeah.
curious.
Yeah, but no, I think that's a conversation we absolutely should have.
Okay, let's move it. I move it.
Second,
So this is gonna be resolution, I believe it's 40, Carissa. We're going to adopt the cyber insurance quote provided by, what did you tell me it was Hillfax, or what is it? Hillcox,
his cuts.
Hixcox.
This time.
That's a hard one to pronounce. That's not, there's no L in it, so I don't know why I put an L in it, sorry.
Okay.
And that brings us to privilege of the floor. Oh, I'm sorry, we didn't vote on it. There was a move to the second. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. That brings us to privilege of the floor. There is no member of the public present, so unless
Move
there's,
to adjourn.
thank you very much. Thank you to Nate, Blixie, and Michelle.
Thank you.
For there's, and frankly, Carissa, and Scott and I, this is a lot of, I'm not gonna thank myself, but
will.
even